As you can see from my title, I'm the head of global customer excellence and demand planning inside Kraft Heinz. So our team is responsible from a global perspective. We don't operate anything. This is with the business units, but we are responsible for touching process, technology, and people in terms of a true global center of excellence, collaborating with all the operations and how we can make actually our process better across the board. Just taking advantage to talk a bit about Kraft Heinz to whoever doesn't know about our company, but we're a 26 billion company with presence across the globe. As you can imagine, we have a lot of local brands as well as very large global brands that you might know. Just to say that the size of the challenge that we have varies quite a lot, and we have very different landscapes across the globe that we have to do this transformation for, right?
Marcelo is going to join us today, and he's going to talk about the journey that Kraft Heinz undertook. So, Marcelo, if you can start about sharing what led you to embark on this journey, why was demand planning a priority for you?
I was hearing the session this morning. I was surprised that O9 is only 10 years old because our journey with O9 started actually in 2020, so quite a long time ago as well. I'm sure you all can remember 2020, we had COVID impact, and especially food industry, we had very big disruptions, a lot of impact coming from the COVID restrictions and the uncertainties that we had. Like I said, that we can never waste a crisis, right? And this is a very common theme. We realized that we had a lot of issues, the structural issues in terms of how we looked into our supply chain in general, big gaps in terms of how we orchestrated cash, cost, and service. So we found out that we had many situations where we had the wrong inventory, poor service, and more than anything, we were taking very long time to react with a very complex landscape, as you saw about our brands. And then our ability to react to whatever was happening in the market with an ever-evolving situation month after month, we realized that there was more transformation that should take place. I think it's important to say that we started not from just jumping into technology, and yes, we were looking at what would be the best solutions and how technology could support that. But the whole transformation started really looking deep into our problems and our processes, because without having a very good clarity about how our processes should be transformed, we will not be able to actually do the right transformation across Kraft Heinz, right? And then 5 years later, I would talk a bit about the whole journey, but we've been consistently increasing the number of capabilities and how we are actually driving this whole transformation. It wasn't a big bang, so to whoever thinks that this will be a magic solution and that was something that we could just buy off shelf and then all our problems will be solved, no, right? That there's no magic solution for all of that. But what the consistency of improving little by little our processes, this was what our core focus was and has been ever since we had this crisis in 2020.
So, how are you using technology today?
From this planning transformation initiative that I mentioned, we chose the key processes that we had to completely transform, and a couple of global partners as well, O9 being the one that we chose for the demand planning engine. And when I talk about demand planning engine, it's good to say that it's more than just generating forecasts. We're talking about generating forecasts, but also how we enrich this forecast, how we support and use the technology for decision making, how we react and play with specific scenarios that we want to drive for decision making, and how this actually orchestrates the whole supply chain, right, based on the numbers. Like I said, we started in 2020 and we decided to make a pilot. And the first market where we implemented O9 was in North America. For the ones who don't know this, 80% of our revenue comes from North America. So doing anything in North America is massive, right? And we started the largest market to start this demand planning transformation. It went live actually in 2022. It was maybe a bit of the learnings as well. We went with a vision that we could already do everything all at once, and we had to reshape the program a couple of times, which was good because that the foundations for all the subsequent waves that we had for O9 implementation. Europe came in 2023. In 2024, we expanded to make this a lot more cross-functional because demand planning cannot be seen as a siloed process only owned by supply chain. So we incorporated a lot of elements of cross-functional, especially drivers from commercial teams and finance. We implemented machine learning. And then in 2025, like this year right now, and actually we have to go live in a couple of weeks, we actually decided to reset a bit to actually adopt the ref model from O9, specifically here in Europe, Why thinking that this is a long-term journey of this transformation? This will never end with the single go live, and once we just finish one implementation, we see this as a journey that will continue for many years to come, right? And in terms of impact, we're talking about 20 sales orgs already live, right? So there are multiple groups of countries inside those two regions that I mentioned, more than 50 planners that are currently using O9, and more than 10,000 forecasting items. We can even argue if this size of portfolio is a bit too big, but as you can imagine, it's a very complex landscape to operate in.
Given you started in North America, you're already seeing some benefits from the program.
Definitely.
So what is the value that you've seen from the program? And if you could also highlight, where does that value really come from?
Yeah, I think that there's no secret, right? Like, we supply chain people, we talk usually about very similar KPIs across the industry. And maybe, like, to whoever is curious, there are a couple of numbers that we'd like to highlight that is proving and why we are also sustaining this journey for many years to come. We're talking about forecast accuracy improvement across all horizons, right? We cannot talk forecast accuracy in one single snapshot. This has to support very short-term decision-making, the cycles that we have on a monthly basis, but also very long-term. We're talking nearly double-digit on the monthly forecast accuracy, double-digit forecast accuracy improvement for the tactical horizon, where we are making decisions on a weekly basis. It's not here, but long-term, we are also improving at 5% our forecast accuracy as well. All of that to say that this supports our decision-making process, and we are also reducing bias. Like, we could reduce even further, and this is what we are pushing for, which comes with the whole topic of this journey, making it touchless and proving that the system is a lot less biased than humans. This is a key part of the transformation journey that we're going through, right? And then how we're proving value, because forecast by itself, if it's not driving the rest of the supply chain to also change, will never pay back such a big transformation that we're doing. We look at inventory, and we're massively reducing excess inventory, and this is going even further already. This is end of 24 snapshot, right? We went even further already this year, massively reducing losses, which is a big topic for us as a food company. We shouldn't be wasting food, right? It should be zero waste from this perspective. And all of that, improving service as well. All of that to say that it looks magical, but it was just coming from a deep-rooted, inefficient process that we were having before. That's why, like, combining process assessment with how we were doing the digital transformation was key for this journey, right? And needless to say, we're never talking about, and we're talking about touchless. It's not about reducing FTEs. It's actually making them have time free to make better decisions and reinvest on things that we were actually not doing. We have more than 15% of time back, and then with users happy as well, with our benchmark of being 30 as NPS, we are one of the systems that we have the highest NPS in Kraft Heinz.
And of course, to make this happen, data is super critical. And
Yep.
you also mentioned that you are using some drivers to make sure that you get the results that you're looking for. Can you talk a bit more about the data management journey that you have gone through?
Sure. Data is one of the bottlenecks, I must say, that sometimes we have when we're doing such big transformation. And we learned a lot along the journey, right? I cannot say that it was a walk in the park, that we knew everything, and a couple of things that I will share here we already knew from the beginning. No, there's a lot that we learned from the experience of making things wrong as well and readjusting along the way. This is a collaborative process, and it was a lot easier in the past when you were doing single function transformation, when you can just look at your own data and say, those are the boundaries, this is how the process exactly will look like, and this is how we will make the ingestion and the outputs, and that's it, right? We're operating in a much more diverse landscape and interacting with other systems. So step one, and this is critical, we talked about process, but also really mapping and understanding the role and how each system will interact with each other. This was critical in our journey because we found a lot of different ways of approaching same data. And this was causing a lot of issues along the way, that different systems were speaking different language, and therefore we were not actually driving the autonomous and actual transformation that we want. So really outlining the whole process, understanding interdependencies, how systems will interact, and how data should be flowing across the chain. This was fundamental for us to fix. Then having the right measures as well for data quality, right? So there are a lot of things that, yes, when we started the journey, we thought, we have a very robust, and we were making decisions based on data, but then we really dig into the details. Actually, the data was not either with good quality or was not with the right frequency and not constant. So really mapping and knowing how to measure data quality to drive cross-functional collaboration, I think this is a key fundamental piece. Talking a lot about the other parts, but modularity, making things that are truly global and thinking beyond the current implementation, I think this is a key in the step in the process as well. We usually tend to focus on the problem that we have at hand, really trying to think what is the whole journey and how you will structure this for the long term. This is something that we didn't do, but we started doing a lot more. And last but not least, thinking about the people who will be interacting with the solution as well. So it's not necessarily change management itself, because this is a subsequent process when we have the solution live, but really understand what is the journey that we want them to go through, and therefore what are the priorities and what are the steps that we will take to actually onboard the extra data into the solution.
And you mentioned that it's not a one-time change that you're doing. It's a continuous journey that you are undertaking, and you're quite proud of the improvements that have happened, but also how you have set up the continuous improvement in your teams,
Yeah.
and you're enabling the organization to go through the changes as you go further on this journey. So, can you talk about how you set up this continuous improvement teams, and also what enabled you to start setting this team up? What are some of the roles and responsibilities that they have?
I think first of all is being very intentional, right? And understanding from the beginning that, and the communication across leadership as well, and especially in our company, sometimes we made the mistake of overselling the dream that everything would be solved and that's it. Understanding and already bringing the leadership on board that this would be a long journey. This was a fundamental step for us. But I think that there are a couple of, if I can talk about where I think that we are doing really well, I think having dedicated teams that are interacting with the business directly. So we didn't make a digital transformation team that knew that their responsibility was just doing the project and then they will go away. We brought people from the business, and we have the expectation that those individuals will go back to the business as well. Not having people that will only be doing system implementations, because this interaction was fundamental, right? But having dedicated teams, really focusing on understanding and having the challenge to improve, knowing that the end business results is what will drive actually the transformation that they needed. I don't care if the system is going live and then this is not, and the NPS is terrible. I don't care if the solution is live, but then we are not actually driving, and consensus is actually not supporting the results that we need. This is all combined, and although we have a dedicated team, all integrated to how business is actually driven. And then the CI mindset is actually creating the layer and the numbers and how you will actually structure the routines around the business processes. So you're talking about CI all the time, right? So we look at performance at different angles. We know what is exactly each KPI for, and who we are judging, and what step of the process we are judging, who is responsible for each part of the KPIs, right? And I think that especially for Touchless, and then when we're talking about such transformation for demand planning, this obsession about forecast value add, I think this is something that I spoke last year, like to whoever saw the Munich one. This is one of the things that is very close to my heart, that talking about forecast value add, because we have still this tendency, right? And we still face a lot of planners and teams that said, but I'm still making the forecast better. But at what cost? What could you be doing with this time that you're investing for such marginal improvements, right? So having the right metrics and embedding this culture of looking at value add, this is something that was fundamental as well for the transformation. And when I talk about value add, it's both from data science teams understanding what they have to do to add value to the model generator and the forecast generator, but also the demand planners who are spending in the front line, but also, right, and that's why the cross-functionality element is so important, cross-functional teams. It's the first time that we're talking about, yeah, I really needed to have this input and I will completely transform your forecast, so you have to change it. And then this debate, like measuring how much value we are adding from this type of conversation versus what is actually driving the business, this has been fundamental to actually drive those conversations. So we have a continuous loop for CI, because yeah, the portfolio is so big that we always have many pockets of improvement. And yeah, running away from consensus, this whole culture of I want to look at how the forecast quality is actually improving along the way instead of looking at how consensus is reached. I think this was fundamental piece as well to actually drive this CI mindset that is not only supply chain responsibility.
So what's next?
The key element that we're having, and that's why it's such a good partnership that we're having and building with O9. We want to go along the journey, and we chose partners in line with the vision that we have. We have a very long journey still in terms of how we will reach the levels of touchless that we want to reach. We want to be above 90% as well across the board for different horizons and different metrics. But that comes along with sharing a vision about how the product will evolve. So there's a lot of opportunities in terms of new capabilities that we still want to add, respecting those different horizons that we are flipping, right, between what is the key priority that we're improving. Sometimes we are focusing a lot more on the monthly cycles. Then once we level up and we have this step change, we start focusing on some others on where we are touching and transforming. So we will keep expanding to really have one single. We are evolving as well towards a lot more integrated view. So when we're talking IBP and having financial decisions as well integrated to whatever we're doing, we already have at a certain level this, but we want to fully integrate how those decisions are made. And as you might remember, we are only live right now in North America and Europe. That already represent 90% of our business, but it's not where the growth is coming. And therefore, there is not where more critical decisions are also being made when we're talking about forecast. So we are extending the solution as well across the globe, already adopting the ref model, because then it's what we have the vision to have cheap, fast, and scalable solution integrated with a very solid global leverage of whatever was already created for the other markets.
Any final advice for our audience here who are embarking on the digital transformation or midway through the transformation journey?
For the ones that are embarking, usually this is the exciting moment. So I would just say, think very carefully about the process and understand very well where you want to go, because otherwise you will just make transformations and you will rebuild solutions. We did that for a couple of things. Walking slow at the beginning so you really understand what you want to do. This is fundamental. For the ones that are already along the journey, I would say, I think, especially if you're on the downside, because there are sometimes that the transformation is not always a happy path, but really focus on the people and understand how they are actually understanding the transformation and how they are actually adopting and leveraging. Because most of the times value is lost not exactly on the solution itself, it's how you're actually communicating and driving the change with the people that are on the front line, right? So if you don't change their mindset to trust the systems and actually embark on the journey to really transform themselves and how they're doing their work, the likelihood of success gets a lot smaller, right?
Well, thank you, Marcelo. This has
Yep.
been very insightful, and especially about the continuous improvement and this being a journey and not a big bang project that you're on has been one of the differentiators, I would say, for Kraft Heinz success.